Just waiting for the little, all right, here we go. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you all so much for joining us in our Higher Education First Friday chat. It's the first Friday of every month between the months of September and June. My name is Rebecca Ronstadt-Contreras. I am with the Higher Education Program, and I'm very excited to be here hosting today's First Friday chat with our special guest, Angela Willeford from the Office of Congressional and Legislative Affairs. She's going to talk about voting, our ballots. For those of you who are joining us live, as you may know, next week, November 8th, is our voting day. And if you are watching this after the fact, hopefully it's before November 8th, you will get out your vote as well. Angela's going to talk a little bit about that. Before I turn it over to her, I'd like to have our higher education staff members introduce themselves. And so I will, let's start with, oh, we have people waiting in the lobby. Okay, so if everyone could introduce themselves from higher ed, please feel free to, let's start with Erica. Go ahead. There you go. You're on mute. I know.
Darn, you'd think by now I'd know, right? Hi, everyone. I'm Erica Outcult, Program Advisor with Salt River Higher Education.
Joyla?
Good morning. My name is Joyla Gates, Program Advisor for Higher Ed.
Thank you. Davina?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Davina Leone. I'm the Early College Advisor under the Higher Education Program.
Thank you. Andrea?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrea Stanley, and I am the Higher Education Secretary.
Thank you. Mario?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Mario West. I'm a Higher Education Program Advisor.
Thank you. And Tanya?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tanya Coakley. I'm the Salt River Higher Education Program Accountant.
Thank you. Mr. Seneca Peters?
Morning, everyone. Seneca Peters, Career Services Coordinator here in the Community Employment Division of HR.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for joining us. Like I mentioned before, today's topic is going to cover voting. We're going to talk a little bit about the candidates, the propositions, and some important information relative to getting out your vote properly and efficiently next Tuesday. So I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Angela Willeford. Angela, if you'd like to if you'd like to join us. Thank you so much for being here. Go ahead and introduce yourself and let me know when you're ready, and I will share your presentation.
Well, good morning, everyone. Like Becca said, I want first to thank Higher Education for having me. It's such an important topic for us to talk about voting. My name is Angela Willeford. I'm with the Office of Congressional and Legislative Affairs. I am also Otham, Peaposh, Seminole, and Creek. I'm an enrolled member of the Salt River Indian community. So again, I want to thank you all for giving me this platform to talk about first some candidates, the propositions, and give you some important dates on when to vote. So go ahead, Becca, hit it. Let's see. So
all right. So bear with me. I have your presentation. We are going to share my screen. Let's see. Okay, here we are. Can you all see? Hopefully you can see our screen.
Yes, I could see it. I'm not sure. I'm sure everyone.
Yep.
If I can see it right then. Yep. Okay, we're good.
Awesome.
All right, again, I am with the Office of Congressional and Legislative Affairs, and what we do is we kind of facilitate conversation with external partnerships, whether it's city, state, federal, our tribal municipalities. So we have a really good gauge on candidates and the relationships that they have with the tribe. We are pretty unique. Our office is unique because every 2 years we handle our Get Out the Vote initiative. And our tribal council is very aware of the importance of democracy and understanding the importance of voting. So today, this morning, or whenever you listen to this presentation, what we're going to talk about is who's really has a pulse on our tribal interest. Who has come to the community, who is working with tribes, who can the president call and say, hey, we need you to support this initiative? So this election is a midterm election, typically has a low turnout, but this year we're trying to do everything we can to make sure that you are first registered to vote, which the deadline already passed. So now we're here talking about get out the vote. We need to make sure that everybody votes on November 8th. If you have a ballot, it is too late to turn it in. So we're gonna need you to vote, drop it off at the precinct, which is the community building, on November 7th from 9 to 5 and November 8th from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. So here is the two candidates running for governor. So again, I talked about how these individuals are, what's their platform of tribal issues? How are they, what's their gauge? Like, do they have a record? And Katie Hobbs, who is the Democratic candidate, she does have a record for tribal interest. She's worked with our office in the past. She kicked off, she has her priorities are protecting voting rights. And as you may know, I think I presented last time about the history of voting. She's comfortable with making sure we have healthcare rights. She's actively engaged in a tribal government to government relationship. The next candidate is Kari Lake. According to her website, again, we've reached out to these candidates, we've partnered with them, or we've reached out to them, we worked with their staff to see what their, if they have a tribal policy, and she does not have any preference or no reference to working with tribes. And so I'm going to go to the next slide, because these are what some of the interests are, the information we've shared to our community members and staff on what kind of information are they sharing. So Kari Lake recently had her campaign's manager, he tweeted, his name's Colton Duncan, he tweeted this statement, happy Indigenous Peoples Day. So President Havier, a lot of tribal leaders kind of reacted, and President Havier stated, on behalf of the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community, it is not acceptable that a candidate to be the next governor of Arizona, representing 22 tribes, has a campaign that tolerates ignorance. Candidate Kari Lake owes Native people an apology. Just last week, we met with the Intertribal Council of Arizona, and Kari Lake, Blake Masterson, and Abe Hamadeh actually came out. And unfortunately, Kari Lake still did not give the apology that not only did President Havier request or demand and Governor Loughrige, she went on to say that unfortunately she's reached out to her, she talked to her campaign manager, and she can't take responsibility for his actions. So I guess, again, we're nonpartisan. We do not tell you how to vote, but we would like to give you information on, would you want this individual as a tribal person to represent tribal communities? The next candidate is Kari Lake, or Katie Hobbs, I'm sorry. So Katie Hobbs actually launched her campaign tour within the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community. She visited our River Peoples Health Clinic. She's actually worked with our office on voting rights issues. Again, we haven't had the liberty to vote until 1970 just because of the voting issues, and she's well aware of that. She has an open door policy. She reached out to president and vice president. So she has that relationship with the Salt River Indian community. So those are the two candidates running for the governor's office. Again, the governors, I think a lot of individuals think that the president is important, but I hope you understand, after the pandemic, we realized just how important the governor's office is. They're the ones that are in charge of not only the budget, but during a pandemic, they were the ones that are going to lead the way on protecting Arizona, such as the mask mandate, mask and then the vaccine. So just think about those when you show up on the polls, to the polls on November 8th. So the next two candidates, and I'm going to kind of go through this fast, I'm going to say for natives are kind of no position on natives, is the U.S. Senator. So Mark Kelly is the current sitting senator. He actually has met with President Havier. He's been with he's visited the community numerous times. He's advocated for funding to build and staff the River Peoples Health Clinic, funding for tribes during the pandemic. He supported the Arizona during the negotiations, the Arizona Tribal State Gaming Compact negotiations. He was there making sure that he was pushing the right way to protect the gaming rights for Arizona. Recently, Salt River had a tornado which resulted in a natural disaster, and he did a declaration to address the storm damage in Salt River. So again, he does have that open door policy, and we have that liberty to reach out to him if we need him. Blake Masters, he's endorsed by former President Donald Trump. He has no statement or position on tribal policy. We did meet with him again last week with the Intertribal Council of Arizona, and his priorities are building the wall, fentanyl. He really didn't have a tribal statement that in front of tribal leaders. He had that platform, and he didn't have anything to say on how he could help tribal communities. The next candidate that we're going to talk about is the Secretary of State, Mark Finchem. I'm sure you guys, if you guys can do some research on him, but he's endorsed by former President Donald Trump. As a member of the state legislature candidate, he's supported voting rights policies that many tribes that impact tribes. He opposed that we would be put in place more barriers. He wants to put more barriers in for voting. He has no published statements on positions on tribal specific issues. The candidate for the other candidate is Adrian Fontes. He actually worked with our office during the pandemic and helped us make sure that we got the drop boxes at the Salt River Fields, at the community building. And if he actually states that if he's committed to preserving integrity in elections, increased transparency in the Secretary of State's office, and wants to make voting easier for registered voters versus making it harder. Although there's no published statements or positions addressing tribal communities, we do know that Adrian is a friend to the tribal communities, as we worked with him on numerous occasions. The next slide is dun, dun, dun. Let's see. It's Arizona Attorney General. So Arizona Attorney General is extremely important to tribal communities because they're the ones that if there is a court case, it goes to the to them, and they kind of make the decision on how they can work with tribes or what their ruling is going to be if they need to elevate it to a different Supreme Court. So Abraham Hamadeh has no record of working with tribes. He says he will demand a free and fair election and will prosecute election fraud to the fullest extent. If elected, he will prioritize an election integrity. Candidate has no published views on tribal issues, but he does say he will work with tribal communities on unique issues such as voting rights and jurisdictional issues. Kris Mayes does have a record working with tribes. She's worked for the Navajo Nation. She reached out. She actually visited the Intertribal Council of Arizona numerous times. When I say numerous times, I mean over 3 times, just to talk about how they can help and build that relationship with the tribes. She is informed tribal leaders. She wants to learn more about the critical issues that face tribal communities and impact to jurisdictions and sovereignty. And, you know, I think her even mentioning the word sovereignty in her speech and is her understanding what sovereignty and government to government relationship is. Again, we have a couple of U.S. Supreme Court cases decisions that they're going to need to learn how, or if elected, they're going to have to decipher them and apply the law into the Arizona Constitution, or Arizona constituents. The next slide, Congressional District 1. So after, again, I think in my last presentation, I talked about our new district. Salt River, Pima Maricopa Indian Community is now in Congressional District 1. We are currently Congressman David Schweikert, who was endorsed by former President Trump, is our representative. He does have a relationship with tribes or with the community. He has an open door policy. He's assisted the community on tribal gaming legislation, funding of the construction of the River Peoples Health Clinic. He's helped us with our cultural resource campaign, our protection issues. Although his campaign does not have or did not identify tribal community specific issues, as a member of Congress, he has had, again, he's had that open door policy. And our next individual are running against David, is candidate Jevin Hodge. He's a businessman. He's a community leader. He actually oversees a preschool currently. He met with the community. He's been to the community, our community events. He's come to Community Day. He's actually going to be at the polls on Election Day at 8 a.m. He is a young face. His mother is the Tempe councilwoman, Brunetta, I think Brigida or I'm gonna butcher, but his mom is on council for the city of Tempe, and actually prior to that, she was on the education board for the city of Tempe. One thing he's talked to our HR department to talk about the labor, how to get our students involved in labor, the unions, just so like welding, blue collar jobs. That's something that he's really wants to work with our community with. So that's two candidates running for Congressional District 1. The next candidates are Legislative District 8. So Roaxana Hamadeh, I kill that name, and if she sees this, she's going to kill me. But we've had the opportunity to meet with her. She is new to politics. She's told me that numerous times. She's big on no vaccine mandates, no mask mandates. She is a former police officer and a wildlife rescuer who worked for a travel business. Juan Mendez, our current state senator, has represented the community since 2012. He's had a great relationship with us. I can text him right now actually and say, hey, we need your help, or we need you to, let's set up a coffee date, and we need to update you on some of the issues that we have going on. He opposes any kind of voting and election legislation that would impose more obstacles. He's helped us on tribal state gaming compacts. One thing that I like to thank Senator Mendez on is that he actually worked with us to host the first Native Youth Legislative Day at the state legislature. His priorities for this session are education, healthcare, reproductive justice. Again, there's no published statements on the position, but he does have the open door policy with the tribes. And the next candidates are for the state house. So those are two seats. So there's Bill Loughrige and Caden Darrow. They are both have no priorities or no statements on working with tribes or statements about tribal positions. I know Bill Loughrige he worked for the U.S. Department of Treasury and a former police officer. Caden Darrow, he is a jewelry businessman. And then there's Melody and Athena. So I'm going to lump them together because these two candidates have a great relationship with the tribe. Melody is currently an EMT, so she was in the line of duty during the pandemic. She was she worked with the fire department, not ours, but for Chandler's. And she has always reached out to us, letting us know, like, hey, this piece of legislation is important. How do you want me to vote on it, or what's your stance? Melody and Athena. Melody just presented to council a few weeks ago talking about giving a legislative update. So Melody and Hernandez and Athena Salman they represent the tribes on the numerous issues, and we have an open door policy with them. Dun, dun, dun. Next slide, please. And again, I'll answer more questions if needed. Kathy, so the Arizona Superintendent of Public Instruction, there's two candidates. There's Kathy Hoffman and Tom Horn. Kathy Hoffman actually has worked with Salt River Schools to promote the preservation of our native languages. She is appointed Councilwoman Gray to serve on the Indian Education Policy. She is creative on making sure that we have high quality, she wants to recruit and retain high quality teachers. She understands the importance of mental health for our students, and she wants to create diversity and inclusion in schools. Although there's no published statements or positions specifically addressing Native communities, I think her statement of appointing a tribal representative to the board for her being a liaison is something that states that she is in favor of tribal government to government relationships. Tom Horn, when I read his website just to see his priorities are to stop canceling culture, promote patriotism, quality education, and real learning. There's no definition of what real learning is. And again, he doesn't have a position on tribal issues and so those are the two candidates for running for the Arizona Superintendent of Public Instruction. The next races are Arizona State Treasurer. So there's Martin, how do I say that?
Martin Quesada.
Quesada and Kimberly. So these individuals, we really don't get in. We didn't really dive into their because they don't really play a role for the tribe. So state mine inspector is Paul Marsh. And then the Arizona State Corporation Commission, there's Sandra Kennedy, Lauren Kuby, Nick Myers, and Kevin Thomas. The only thing that I would have to say about Nick Myers is there was a statement that he made alluding to tribes as foreign affairs. And so that was something that was kind of made us take a second look at his how he thinks about tribes. But he did state that they shouldn't fund the tribes and they should go through foreign affairs. We are citizens of the United States. We're not foreign affairs. So that's something that you guys should be mindful of. County Board of Supervisors, we can pass this one. Thomas Galvin is the only one running for District 2, and he's a Republican, but he is a friend of the community. And then there's the Alejandra Arboleda and Ben Groff. Those are incumbents, so they are actually currently on the board. Next one. So Maricopa County Community College. So Randy Kaufman was arrested for a lewd act. He withdrew his name, but his name will still be on the ballot. So if you vote for him, it will be a thrown away vote because he is withdrawn. So Kelly Butler is the individual that is the only candidate there. Yvette, vote for one. There's Laura Metcalf and Luke Hyatt. Next slide is, okay, so here's something that's really unique. We actually have a community member who is running for Mesa Unified School District. Obviously, he's a community member, so we're supporting him. We're asking the community to vote yes on Ray Deer. We have about 1,200 students from Salt River that attend Mesa Public Schools. So it would be important and even it would be beneficial for us to have a representative from the tribe on Mesa School Board. So we're going to say vote yes on Ray Deer. And now we have the judge commissions on judicial performance review. So I get asked this question because there's so many. Actually, I have the ballot right here. So here's the ballot, and these are, I mean, you would think these are all the judges. So we will have this ballot and printout at the polls on election day. So you are able to come and look at it, and we kind of have like which candidates that are supported for tribes on, and so it's like a cheat sheet for you all. So we had our lawyer staff kind of look at them and say, all right, who is important or who's been favorable to tribes and who's a good guy and who would they want to see continue to represent to be a judge for the Superior Court. So, but if you want to do your own homework, you can go to azcourts.gov and it kind of talks about their judicial performance. And we can go to the next slide. All right, now we're going to talk about the propositions. So there's propositions that are introduced by the community, and then there's propositions that are referred by the legislature. So proposition one, and we didn't take a stance on all of them, but we did take a stance on a few. So if it says how our office recommends, then you'll notice. So a proposition 128 will weaken the voter protection by allowing the legislator to amend and eliminate voter pass measures with a simple majority. So what that means, and what we did for 128, we did say, we're gonna say, no, I think 128. Hold on, I have my cheat sheet. Sorry, Melody, is that Melody Hernandez? On? No. All right. Proposition 129. Hold on, I'm looking for my cheat sheet really quick. I have it because I've presented this a couple of times, and then Sometimes there's a lot. So Proposition 129, it encompasses more than one subject. So what that means is that, so there's bills, and what sometimes this is how I've explained it. There's a vehicle and they allow one issue. Well, now, currently you can add a couple of other issues into that car and then they can move it. A no vote would keep the initiative laws. Today, a yes vote would eliminate the ability for people to combine issues into one initiative. I'll leave that up to, that's discretionary to how you all feel. Proposition 130 is the tax exemptions are in multiple sections. A yes vote on Proposition 130 will streamline and consolidate the property exemption into one section. It also disabled veterans to receive a property tax exemption. A no vote will keep the Constitution as today. Again, we are in the tribe. We most of us are, not most of us. This presentation is alluding that we live out here, so it really wouldn't apply to us. Next one. All right, so vote no on Prop 131. Currently, in the event of a resignation, death in the governor's office, the elected Secretary of State would automatically become governor. The governor and Secretary of State may be different parties like they are now. So a yes vote on Proposition 131 would create a lieutenant governor, and that would be elected with a governor and would assume the office of governor if became vacant. A no vote keeps the Constitution as it is today. So we are recommending a vote no on Prop 131. 132, a measure placed on the ballot that raises taxes is deemed passed by the voter if it receives 50% plus one vote. As an example, the gaming initiative that passed in 2002 did not meet the requirement and would not have become law. A yes vote on Proposition 132 would require the future voter initiatives that raise a revenue would not have to pass a ballot measure with 60% of the vote. A no vote keeps the initiative law as today as it exists. And I want to say, hold on, 132. Did we say 132? We're going to say no on 132. Next slide is Proposition 209, and these propositions were referred to by the people. They had to get signatures, and then it was referred to go to the elections. So currently, the law allows for the maximum interest rate on medical debt to be 10%. In Proposition 209, this would lower the interest rate to a maximum of 3%. It would increase the amount of assets that are exempt from debt collectors. A no vote would keep the medical debts law as they are today. Recently, when I met with we presented to Councilman Largo's district, we had firefighters in the audience, and they informed us that there's individuals with over $90,000 in debt. So, after we heard this, it probably would be best a yes vote on Proposition 209 that would lower the interest rates. So yes on 209. Prop 211, currently entities and people can fund political campaigns, and the campaign does not have to disclose who is donating it. So for example, Target, or let's say the Phoenix Suns, if they're donating funding, sometimes they they're able to hide money and just send it through, let's say, a lobbyist. So a yes vote on Prop 211 would change the law, so campaign contributors would become public record for all these political entities and campaigns. A no vote would keep the law the same as it's related to the campaign finance. So I'll leave that up to you all to decide. I know when we spoke with our seniors earlier this week, we had mentioned it, and they would like to know where who is donating to what, because it would prevent them, like we talked about. I'm like, so if the Phoenix Suns were doing something, would it make you stop going? And they were like, yes. So again, it's discretionary, up to you how you guys feel, what's important to you all. But again, the yes vote would change the law, and no vote would keep the law the same. Proposition 308, currently children brought into this country at a young age have graduated from Arizona high schools are ineligible to receive financial aid and in-state tuition at a community college and university. A yes vote for Prop 308 would allow these students to qualify for in-state tuition and financial aid. That doesn't mean it's free. That just means that they're able to qualify to receive in-state tuition and financial aid. A no vote would keep them ineligible for in-state tuition and financial aid. Again, this is discretionary to you all. but it does not mean free schooling. Next slide. All right, vote no on Prop 309. Currently, laws for early voting allow voter to sign outside of the ballot does not require an in-person voter to show a photo ID. A yes vote on Proposition 309 would make it more difficult for individuals to vote by mail. So you would have to put their birth date, the government ID number, and signature and affidavit to vote early. An in-person voter would have to show their government ID to vote, which they already do. A no vote keeps the early voting, in-person voting as it is today. So we are recommending everyone to vote no on Proposition 309. 310. So this is something that I need to explain why we're saying no on 309 or 310. So current laws related to state sales tax does not funding for fire district. A yes vote on Proposition 310 would increase the sales tax by 0.1% to fund fire districts starting January of 2023 for 20 years. A no vote keeps the sales tax the same as it is today. And I'm going to explain why we're saying no on 310. Currently, the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian community, so when you come and visit the community, say you shop at Target, there's a sales tax. It's called transactional privilege tax. Currently, we have to pay into it. So we pay it. So when we go, we pay. And that money is then diverted to the different municipalities to fund fire departments or police stations or police. That funding doesn't come back to the community. There was a Supreme Court case in the 80s. And so any TPT is not given back to the community. And the only reason we're saying vote no on Prop 310 is because it would increase a sales tax in the community, but we would not be applicable to receive the funding back. So with that being said, we are saying no on Prop 310. And the next slide is OCLA Resources. So we've done as much as we can to share important dates on registering, on the dates when to show up on election. We have a Facebook page. We've maximized our communication with the Autumn Action News. We've done outreach to tribal corporations. We've shared information on Salt River TV. You can like and follow and share our Facebook page. Not only after the election will we have this up and going, but we'll talk about like who is visiting the community. Even now, if you visit our Facebook and Instagram page, you'll see which candidates are visiting the community, because we'll post that. I hope this presentation has been beneficial to you. I know it was fast and furious, but if you have any questions, I am open.
Wow, Angela, thank you so very much for sharing all of this information. So Davina does have a question. Can you explain what you mean when you say open door policy? What does that mean?
So that means that we can say, so right now I have Athena, Melody, and Juan's. So I have it. These are our state legislature. The president has Congressman Schweikert, the governor. He has those. That means that we can text him like, hey, we need your help. Or, hey, I mean, that's one initial how the open door policy, or we'll say, hey, we're going to schedule something. That means they're open to have that open door. Like, you need to meet with us, let's schedule something. As staff, we will schedule something, and that's what that means.
Thank you. So are you saying that not all legislators have that open door policy? Or is that our assumption?
Yeah. Well, there are individuals that will reach out to them and we get ghosted. Yes.
Got it. Okay, thank you. So when you're talking about recommending, so when you were going over the propositions, you said, vote yes, vote no. That is just to understand correctly, that is the stance that the tribe has taken, correct, on those propositions?
That is the recommendations our office has made to tribal council, and we let them know. They're aware that why it's important to us, why it's important to the community. But yes, they are.
Thank you. Wonderful. And so the Get Out the Vote committee, the voting committee, the ad hoc committee, higher ed is a participant in that. I volunteered a lot of my time with that. And so all of this is just fantastic information, and we so appreciate you coming on and being willing to share this information with us. We have a couple more days. Next week is going to be a busy week, Monday and Tuesday, correct?
Correct.
For us, for you, for myself.
Yeah, so well, first I want to thank Becca, and I want to thank higher education, and for the schools and understanding and having that liaison to advocate. Voting in democracy is extremely important to the tribal community, and without that, we can't hold our representatives accountable. So making sure that we show up, our vote is in our power. So yes, Monday it is our polls are opening from 9 to 5. So if you have a ballot, drop it off at the polls of the community building. On Tuesday, it is from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Make sure you vote. Tell your family, your friends. We will have on Tuesday, we're going to have Harkins popcorn. We'll have burritos in the morning. We'll have Harkins popcorn, and we will have some dessert food truck. And again, we're saying, hey, let's have Democracy Day. Let's make it fun. We're going to have a DJ. But there is a protection if you have any issues before you do provisional ballot. If you have any issues, come back and talk to us and say, all right, let's dig into it a little bit more. If, say, for instance, they can't find you on the roster, it's happened in the past. And we'll see what we can do to make sure that that's accurate statements from what's going on in the polls. So thank you guys. Thank you all. I know there was one more question. Was that?
Yeah, we actually have two more questions. So one is, regardless of where an individual lives, are they still able to drop their ballot off at the community building on Tuesday?
Yes, because we are a
Okay.
voting center. So anybody, if you're in Maricopa County, only if you're in Maricopa County. If you're in Pinell, you have to go to Pinell. Yes.
Okay, so anyone living in Maricopa County who has not already mailed their ballot, do not mail your ballot. Secondly, if you have your ballot and you've already completed it, you can drop it off at the community building on Tuesday, November 8th, correct?
You can drop it off Monday from 9 to 5, and you can drop it off Tuesday from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Perfect, thank you. Secondly, does the tribe have any advice, or do you have any advice on the Central Arizona Water Conservation Nonpartisan Ballot?
Let me look at my handy dandy notebook. Let's see. No, we don't. Because the community, I can get into water and I can get really nerdy on it. So, but they don't really oversee our water. I mean, we have that partnership. We're kind of part of that. They are like, that's it. I won't go into anymore. So
nope,
no, I'm
thank
sorry.
You. Okay, no, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying. Does anyone else have any questions before we close today's First Friday chat? This is a really good one. Thank you so much, Angela.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you all. Happy Friday. Make sure you vote. I got shirts for y'all.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. Don't forget to vote next Tuesday, November 8th.
Yes, ma'am. All
right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.